For thousands of years, we've heard the Ramayana as this epic story about a righteous prince on a quest. But what if it's not just ancient history? What if it's actually a living story, a kind of roadmap to the world inside our own minds?
And that's really the core idea we're going to dig into today. We're going to look at this incredible epic, not as something that happened way back when, but as a powerful allegory for the spiritual journey that's happening inside every single one of us. So, the real question becomes, what if this is all happening right now? You know, the timeless struggle between our highest self and our ego playing out in the theater of our own consciousness.
Okay, so to really get this, let's meet the main characters. In this inner drama, Rama, well, he's not just a prince, he's your highest self, what we call the Atman. And Sita, she's the individual soul. That's you, that's me, the Jiva. Then you've got Hanuman, who stands for pure devotion and that vital life force, prana. And the big bad guy, Ravana, get this, he is the ego-minded self.
You know, our journey doesn't actually begin with a big fight. It starts in a state of perfect harmony. This first part is all about how that original unity gets lost, which then leads to the soul being captured.
The Balakanda, the beginning of the story, really symbolizes our original state of being. Just think of it as a time of total innocence and wholeness, where our individual soul, Sita, is perfectly connected to our higher self, Rama. And that kingdom of Ayodhya? That's the sanctuary of our very own heart, a place ruled by peace.
But then, boom, the exile happens. In the Ayodhya Kanda, this isn't some kind of punishment. It's really a symbol for the soul's journey down into what's called samsara, the wilderness of everyday life. We get separated from that inner source and we start being run by external stuff instead of our own inner peace.
And of course, out in this wilderness, we get distracted. The Aranyakanda brings in the golden deer, which is a super powerful symbol for Maya, any shiny, temporary, worldly thing that just grabs our attention. And it's right in that moment of distraction that the ego mind sees its opening. This brings us right to our main antagonist, Ravana, the ego mind. He's always shown with 10 heads, right? But what do those 10 heads actually mean? So check this out. The 10 heads aren't just about being evil. They represent the very tools the ego uses to control us, our 5 senses that we use to see and hear the world, and our 5 organs of action that we use to move and interact with it. The ego basically hijacks these fundamental tools, tricking us into believing it's the one in charge.
Using these powers, the ego snatches the soul and drags it off to Lanka. But Lanka isn't some far-off island. It's the deep, dark territory of our own subconscious mind and even our physical body. It's here that our soul becomes a prisoner, totally trapped by the ego's fears, its cravings, and all its attachments. So, how does the self even begin to find the soul again? Well, it can't just declare war. First, it has to get control over its own internal world through some serious discipline.
So in the Kishkinda Kanda, Rama meets the Vanaras, the monkey army. Now, allegorically, these aren't just monkeys. They represent our countless neurons, our nerve impulses, all that restless, chattering, chaotic energy bouncing around in our own nervous system.
Now, to lead this army, the self has to solve a huge inner conflict. And this is pretty fascinating. In a modern sense, the battle between Vali and Sugriva is kind of like the struggle between the thalamus in our brain, which is like a tyrannical gatekeeper for our senses, and the hypothalamus, which controls all our primal emotions and survival instincts. So by taming that raw, unfiltered sensory input, the self makes an alliance with our primal drives, but in a regulated way. This whole part is about us gaining conscious control, pointing the full power of our nervous system towards one single goal, getting the soul back.
Okay, so the inner team is assembled, our faculties are under control, and now the stage is set for the great spiritual battle, the war against our own ego.
The Sundarakanda kicks off with Hanuman's incredible leap. This isn't just a physical jump, it's a metaphor for a profound meditative insight. It's our life force, our prana, fueled by pure devotion, leaping across the vast ocean of consciousness to find the soul, which is hidden away in the subconscious fortress of Lanka. Hanuman comes back with a message of hope. You can be free.
And this next part is just, wow, it's a perfect metaphor for something we talk about all the time now. Neuroplasticity. The building of the bridge to Lanka? That's what happens when consistent spiritual practice gets our neurons, the Vanaras, all working together in harmony. They literally forge new, positive neural pathways, building a bridge out of old, stuck habits and into a higher state of consciousness.
The final battle in the Yuddha Kanda is basically a war against our own inner demons. The self has to take down Kumbhakarna, who represents the body's deep inertia and laziness. But the real turning point comes when Vibhishana, who represents our pure intellect or discernment, has to make a choice. He abandoned his ego-driven brother, Ravana, and sides with the self. With our own clear intellect on its side, the self finally dissolves the ego for good.
Now, once the ego is gone, the soul, Sita, has to go through the Agni Pariksha, the trial by fire. And this isn't about proving she was faithful, it's about the final cleansing of the soul from all its built-up karmic baggage or samskaras. Only then, totally purified, can she finally have that joyful reunion with the Supreme Self. But wait, the story doesn't just end with a simple reunion. The final book, the Uttara Kanda, goes way beyond that to show us the highest and, honestly, the most misunderstood states of spiritual freedom.
This leads to Rama's really heartbreaking decision to banish Sita. From this allegorical perspective, this act represents the ultimate state of detachment, something called Jivan Mukti. The enlightened self has to act based on universal truth, or dharma, unattached even to its own soul. It's about learning to be in the world, but not of it.
And then finally, at the very end of his life, Rama walks into the Sarayu River. Now, this isn't death as we think of it. This is Videha Mukti, liberation from the body. It's the individual self, the Atman, consciously and blissfully merging back into the formless, absolute reality it came from in the first place.
So, after this entire epic journey, from unity to separation to a massive inner war, and finally to total liberation, we come all the way back to the main question. What does any of this mean for you?
The Ramayana is a mirror. It shows us how fragmented we are, but it also shows us the path back to becoming whole again. The story is playing out inside you, right now. So the choice really is always yours. Are you going to stay a captive in Lanka, ruled by that 10-headed ego, or are you going to start the glorious inner journey and let the Rama within you finally reclaim your soul?